You please call the roll.
Senator Byrd, Senator Carpenter, Senator Mills, Senator Smith, Senator Turner, Senator Wheeler, Senator Williams, Senator Wilson, Senator Yates, Vice Chair Storm,
Here.
Chairman Higdon.
Here. Thank you, and we do have a quorum present and fully constituted to do business. Any member have any guests that they want to introduce this morning? We have a guest. We have Senator Neal here with us this morning, but we're waiting on Senator West to do his bill. We have two administrative regs that we need to go over quickly. Yes, sorry, Senator Smith.
Yeah, I apologize for the delay. I do have a guest here with me today. I've got Terry Davison. He's my intern, young student from Hazard High School. Terry, if you'll stand up back there so they can see how handsome we are down in Hazard, Kentucky. Appreciate we got Terry with us.
Okay, we'll go over those administrative regs first. We have 603 KAR 5-350 regarding off-highway vehicle safety and routes. And we know that's a good reg. Senator Wheeler, that's pertains to your bill, your off-road vehicles. And we also have 600 KAR 4010. Gentlemen, you're speaking to the regs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Senator.
Please identify yourself for the record and please proceed.
John Johnson, Transportation Cabinet, Office of Legal Services.
Jared Stanley, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, State Highway Engineer's Office.
Melvin Bynes, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Office for Civil Rights and Small Business Development.
Well, gentlemen, let me thank you for all that you do with the Transportation Cabinet and the service you provide, not only to the state of Kentucky, but to the legislators here. Thank you for being accessible. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
Would you like me to go ahead and give a brief summary of both regulations?
Yes,
in order?
brief is a good word.
Okay. Senator Higdon, 603 KAR 005:350 is the proposed regulation for off-road highway vehicles. It took us a long time to get this ready, and we apologize for the delay. It's comprehensive. The statute was well written, and we feel like it accomplishes the purpose for the pilot program. And we've had a lot of people look at this reg, and it details the procedures by which a local government, as defined by the statute as well as the reg, is allowed to go in and petition the various district offices for particular use of certain portions or segments of state highway for the use of off-road highway vehicles. It starts at the district office. Basically, their hands can be held as they walk through the process at the district office. It's passed off to the central office, and then it's approved, and finally they go out and map the road and take care of all the signage that's necessary to make it safe. And that was our concern all the way through the process. Safety knows no bounds or politics. That's where we're at in transportation. We think safety's first. So.
Thank you.
The second regulation, and do anyone have any questions on that regulation? Senator Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The section providing that part about certain highways that access, that's the 4 lanes you're talking about there, isn't it? They're
Correct.
not permitted on 4-lane
That's
highways
correct,
at all.
yes. Yes.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Senator Smith has a question.
Yeah, will any of this reg affect the trail towns and all the work that's being done to connect all the trails across eastern Kentucky and even moving on into sort of central Kentucky, to where we're trying to open up routes so that people that can ride the trail and say they need to come in and want to get gas or food or services there's a designated route to allow people to come off these interconnecting trails and be able to use some of the roads that we currently have that have been identified as, designated trail town access points for foods and services, so the community can benefit from the traffic that's coming through here. Does that have any impact on that?
No negative impact. So this particular reg allows for.
Identify yourself.
Oh, Jared Stanley, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. No, sir. This reg does not hinder any of that. It actually enhances it. It allows for off-highway vehicles to have those provisions, and it outlines that any entity, county or city, can lobby the Transportation Cabinet to have routes added to the network, at which those OHVs are allowed. And then once the route is allowed and is on the map at the Transportation Cabinet, then that particular vehicle will be able to access goods and services on that route.
And may I follow up with a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So I think that's great, and certainly applaud those efforts. Are there, once I apply, say to get a permit for hazard to have an access point, is there a procedure and a time limit that pretty much it's going to be 30 days and I'll be able to get it, or is it one of these deals that could drag out, sort of indefinitely? Because I like to know that we've got defined timelines of if you have your stuff in good order and you turn it in, you should have an expectation that in 30 or 60 or 90 days you should be able to get this permit. So it couldn't, drag out for 2 or 3 years as we've seen on some other cases, not particularly this, but because it's not built into the reg from the beginning, it sometimes can get abused. Do you all have defined timelines for this?
Senator Smith, yes, we do. From the first, it starts off, they have to have a corrective petition. Once the petition's filed, there's 90 days built into the regulation to process it. Now, there may be a few hiccups in the beginning processing of the petition, and what we've got 12 districts, as you know, in Kentucky. The district office is going to help the local government walk through this process. So the first petition may not be right, but the goal is to allow them to partner with the local government to allow this petition to be filed properly. So they're going to walk them through the process. They're not going to be turned away. We're going to assist that process and get it to the central office as quickly as possible for further review. 90 days is the turnaround once the actual petition is filed properly. If it's incomplete or not properly filed, we're going to kick it back and quickly get it repaired. And then once it's officially filed in correct format, 90 days is the timeline.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just my last follow-up question.
Yes.
So is it sometimes 90 days can mean different things for different cabinets, but so is this 90 days from the time it starts, or is it 90 days only counting from the time that the state is in possession of that?
90
permit?
days from the date the petition is
right,
filed correctly. And I say that because a lot of times, as senators, a lot of things in society are built up to fill out forms and applications that people write their name on them, they're not complete.
Right.
So what's going to happen if the local government leaves something out? We've provided a TC form with this regulation, which basically it's called basically a checklist to give and provide the local government, this is what you need. Check this off, and if you leave anything out of that list, we're going to stop you, make you give us what we need right then, and 90 days is the process. And we really want to see this work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have further questions.
Thank you. Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend you all for your work on this and to effectuate the intention of Senate Bill 75. I think this will create great possibilities for expanding ATV tourism in Eastern Kentucky, and I really want to applaud you for a very well thought out and coherent, simple regulation to allow these communities to do what they need to do. And I also want to thank you for getting the districts ready to help folks move this process forward. And just for clarification, 'cause I was talking with my colleague Senator Turner, who kind of led the issue, led with this back in the 2000s with his four-wheeler bill, where you could cross the road at a 90-degree angle. This doesn't impact that at all, correct?
Not at all. This is for a different type of vehicle. Off-highway vehicles are a different type of vehicle than a four-wheeler, and they're not included in this.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up too,
Just
that, 4-lane highway can be crossed though, can it not? At an intersection, if the county should request, otherwise they're gonna get blocked into, like 23s run from Virginia to as far north, and I'm sure people will be wanting to cross that 4-lane 23. And I just want to understand if that administrative rig prohibits them from the city or county where the road goes, where they're designated, can cross that. We fixed it in the original four-wheeler bill where that they could cross the road at a 90-degree angle and go straight across it at a certain distance. So I just trying to find that out, like where there's a red light or something that they could follow that and cross. Otherwise, they won't be able to get over to West Virginia, and I don't know where they could. 23 just is going to prohibit you from going east to west unless we fix that.
Well, I don't know this particular bill states that you cannot cross on a 4-lane highway. It just says you can't ride along or on a
That's-
4-lane
okay,
highway. So I would assume when I read the regulation that was previously written and we wrote this one, that the previous regulation covered any 90-degree crossing. It doesn't designate what you can or cannot cross. This one just says you can't ride along or with.
Okay, I just want that for clarity. I also thank you all for the hard work you're doing. One other question, I see that 90-day rule, and in other places, as a lawyer in the government, you file an application and they'll wait 80 days and say, oh, you forgot something. And the 90 days, I see in this statute, this reg, like all of them, the 90 days, as far as it relates to you all, don't start until that application is 100 complete.
Well,
So are you
it's
going to
the-
work, as I understood from your testimony, you all are going to really try to work with the people so that if they send you an application, it ain't complete, you're going to get it back to them so they can get that complete quick and not, I know you're going to have 11 districts and all that. So I just appreciate you all doing that so that 90 days ain't stretched out to 180 days, as my good friend from Curry said. Sometimes it can get stretched out.
Yeah, and this,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
Yeah,
too, Judge.
thank you all. And these administrative regs have been well vetted by Senator West back there. He gets great joy of and excitement out of going through the regs. And we appreciate that work, Senator West. Thank you. Gentlemen, I have a favor to ask of you. I've promised two presenters back there that they would go first, and they didn't get to go first, and you took a little bit longer than what we anticipated. So if you don't mind, let them do their bill, and then I'll call you back up to do the other reg, if that's
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate that. Senator West and Senator Neal, Senate Joint Resolution 58. I think we have a committee sub on that. We have a motion and a second on the committee sub. All in favor signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. Motion passes. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. You should identify yourself for the record and please proceed.
Senator Steve West, I represent the 27th District.
Senator Gerald Neal, I represent District 33.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This joint resolution honors General Charles Young, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. Senator Neal might go into a little bit more detail, but in your free time, if you would just read the resolution, this is a very impressive individual from the state of Kentucky. His boyhood home happens to be in Mayslick, Kentucky, which is in my district. And I was not involved with this. Senator Neal has been working on a project for about 3 years. And he was kind enough to reach out to me because this was in my district. And we kind of joined forces and we're working on this initiative. A lot of resolutions we do are feel-good initiatives. I would say cotton candy and sugar and spice, but this is a feel-good initiative, but there is significant substance behind it. So the purpose of it is to form a corridor through our transportation system from Ohio down to Camp Nelson, Kentucky, in honor of General Charles Young. And that's on page 3. And it's from Camp Nelson to the Buffalo Soldier National Monument in Ohio. And so that's the purpose of this resolution. Kind of a brainstorm that I had, and Senator Neal, I think, is also involved with, is we have a lot of African-American history on that route. And we envision it being something more than that eventually. And for instance, in Washington, Kentucky, which is just above, just south of Maysville, Kentucky, there's a house there. Supposedly that's the site where Harriet Beecher Stowe witnessed the slave auction that was part of her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And then Maysville, Kentucky is a key site for the Underground Railroad, where slaves would cross the Ohio River from Kentucky into Ohio at that point. So, and then at Camp Nelson, you have the African-American soldiers were mustered there and came into the Army there. So there's this route, and the eventual goal, I think, is to make that an African-American history route where people could become tourists and come to Kentucky. And if they that's trail and the Bourbon Trail just happened to intersect, so if they drink a bourbon on the way down, that won't hurt either. So I'm going to hand it over to Senator Neal and let him chime in.
Thank you, Senator West, and I must say I'm delighted to join as a co-sponsor with Senator West with respect to this. He sort of downplays his role, but actually his role is very significant in this initiative historically in his district and his involvement in the district as well. So it all came together that way. But let me remind you, perhaps, that maybe 3 years ago, and I may be wrong on the time period, we honored who was then known as Colonel Charles Young, and he was designated or identified or elevated, as you may wish, to the Brigadier General because of his association with Kentucky, etc. This came about because of a fellow named Charles Bletcher, who is with the Black Veterans, the National Black Veterans Group, and he brought this to my attention and the Kentucky Black Legislative Caucus attention, and we sort of provided a platform for the governor to do that particular act. Well, he went further than that. He went to Washington, D.C., and got the federal government to elevate him to Brigadier General on the national level. So he's now Brigadier General Charles Young on that level. And all this was because of this man's history, his contributions, which are not challenged in any way. In fact, they're celebrated. And we were fortunate enough to have his beginning in Mays Lick, Kentucky, where they have a cabin that's been refurbished, et cetera, et cetera. You talk about, he mentioned that this is not just a feel-good piece, but should not underestimate the impact we think will happen from a tourism standpoint as well. It will draw people to Kentucky along that corridor, and I think it's going to have a significant impact in the Mays Lick area as well with respect to that. If I may, I just want to give just a brief background on this individual with respect to this. Brigadier General Charles Young was an extraordinary individual who overcame incredible obstacles and achieved significant accomplishments throughout his military career. General Young's contributions to the military are significant, and he served his country with distinction and honor, despite facing discrimination and racism. The designation of the Brigadier General Charles Young Memorial Historical Corridor is a way to honor his legacy and recognize his many accomplishments. The corridor will serve as a reminder of General Young's contributions and will inspire future generations of Americans to follow in his footsteps. General Young's achievements are a testament to the resilience and determination of African Americans in the face of adversity, and his story is inspiring to all Americans. The Brigadier General Charles Young Memorial Historical Corridor will help to ensure that his legacy is preserved for future generations, and it is an important way to pay tribute to this remarkable individual. Thank you for your listening to this, and hopefully you'll see it the same way, and certainly ask for your support.
We have a motion and a second. I do want to say thank you all for bringing this forward, Senator Neal, Senator West. I'd love the story about, he rode 500 miles to appeal that he was fit to be reinstated in the Army. Is that?
That is correct. You've done your homework.
Well, I didn't do my homework. I just remember you talking about it.
Okay.
And
I did my homework.
Yeah, you did your homework, and it stuck, and that was very impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no questions, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd. Senator Carpenter. Senator Mills. Senator Smith. Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Turner. Senator Wheeler. Senator Williams. Senator Wilson. Senator Yates. Chairman Higdon.
Aye. Senate Joint Resolution 58 is reported favorably with the expression of opinion that the same shall pass, with the committee substitute attached. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Appreciate
committee.
it. Okay, back to our administrative regs. Again, I apologize, and I do appreciate you all allowing us to do that. I know Senator Neal had to be somewhere, and I was going to lose him if we didn't get him started. Okay, back, I guess for now, we're on Administrative Reg 600 KAR 4-010 regarding certification of disadvantaged business enterprises. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, that regulation is basically a cleanup to some problems that were found by a review from the Federal Highway Administration. There was a slight conflict in the certification committee. One of the members in the certification committee, as is written now before the amendment, would also be on what would, for all practical purposes, be the appeal of the certification committee. We cleaned that up, and we made sure that the original certification committee's on the review, but they're not on the initial certification. The other thing that had to be changed was appeals. You'll notice on there that it's electronic now. That's mandatory, and that was something that was handed down from Federal Highway Administration. And I have my colleagues here. Would you like to add any? Identify yourself, Director. And
Melvin Bynes, the Executive Director in the Office for Civil Rights. Quite frankly, there were some things that created conflict, and so those things were removed so that there wasn't a problem, as well as the things that he mentioned that the Federal Highway Administration recommended.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. There's no vote required on these administrative regs. If we don't object to them, they will go into effect, I guess, after this meeting. So thank you very much for being here, and I again appreciate all that you all do, and thank you for the work you do.
thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the list is Senate Joint Resolution 101. I guess will that presenter please approach the table?
Senate Joint Resolution 101 is a joint resolution directing the Kentucky State Police to institute a pilot program of remote testing for instruction permits in counties that do not have a regional driver's licensing office, sponsored by Senator Higdon. Senator, when you get comfortable, please state your name for the record and introduce any guests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jimmy Higdon, State Senator from 14th Senate District. I did call the state police at our Senate email very late yesterday, so they might not have read it yet. So I'll take the blame for that. I assume all of you have received comments from constituents about the regional driver's license offices, and you know, it's going to take time for those to get the bugs worked out and get folks acclimated to the regional offices. I always tell when I get a call that remind people that they can renew their driver's license by mail or about 5 minutes with your phone, and you don't have to go to the regional office. And hopefully one of these days we'll have it where regional offices are somewhat obsolete, except for special issues. But one of the biggest complaints I get is from parents who have to take off from work, take their student to do the written test, and then hopefully they pass. If they don't pass, I hear a lot of them that get to go back a second time to take the written test because that student thinks that they don't have to study, and those tests are fairly tricky. You have to do your homework. You have to read the information to be able to pass the test. And then after they pass the written test, then they have to go do the practical test or the driving part. What this resolution does is ask the state police to do a pilot program, to come up with a pilot program to be able to do the written test at the local level. And I think we can get there. Other states are doing that. There's some issues we had to address, but state police have been great to work with on this, and so hopefully this resolution passes. We'll direct them to have us some answers no later than November the 30th, 2024. And like I said, I think they'll do that, and maybe this time next year we'll see that that's something that a service that we're offering to young people, at least on a pilot project, that they won't have to drive to that regional office for the written test.
We have one question from Senator Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not much of a question, but a statement. Yesterday, I had a school principal, or Monday, telling me about the school systems in Harlan County now have to give kids 2 days off, miss school for 2 days, to go get a permit one day and go get the license another day. And it's only 30-some miles from Harlan, but it may be 50-some or 60 miles from their house where they live. So I'm all in favor of this, and I hope this resolution doesn't work, that come January, somebody like me will draft a statute that mandates it. And I want to thank the chairman for his well job done in this case to try to get this thing moving to help the citizens in Kentucky. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and one step at a time. Hopefully, when we authorized this committee and the road plan, we appropriated, I think, an additional $4 million a year for the state police to up their pay their folks a little bit more that doing this testing, and they needed 70 additional people. I'm not sure where they're at on that. I think the last report I had, they had filled 40 of those spots. So when we get our numbers up some, or where they need to be, and we can start looking at doing some driver's tests locally. But first step is get the low-hanging fruit is the written test.
We have a motion, a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Byrd? Yes. Senator Carpenter? Chairman Higdon?
Aye.
Senator Mills? Aye. Senator Smith? Aye. Senator Turner? Aye. Senator Wheeler? Aye. Senator Williams? Aye. Senator Wilson? Senator Yates? Aye. Chairman Storm?
Aye. Senate Joint Resolution 101 is reported favorably with the expression of opinion that same should pass.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you. I think he's going to be here, so the floor is going to be yours. The next item of business, after we play musical chairs here, Senator Storm with Senate Joint Resolution 102, designating the Officer Mark Medlock Memorial Bridge in Laurel County. Senator Storm, the floor is yours. Please identify yourself for the record and please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senator Brandon Storm, 21st District. Before I get into these resolutions, I just want to say that they're somewhat linked in the fact that both of these deal with officers from the City of London Police Department, Laurel County Law Enforcement, the City of London, and the City of London Police Department specifically have experienced a lot of tragedy in the last year. Specifically, on January 27th of 22, Lieutenant Hurley died as a result of COVID that was contracted in the line of duty as a school resource officer. And then October 30th of 22, Officer Medlock died by being impacted by an impaired driver. So basically, the Senate Joint Resolution 102 would rename the officer, or name Exit 38 Bridge that is above I-75, the Officer Logan Medlock Memorial Bridge. And basically, Officer Logan Medlock served with the London Police Department for 4 years, following in the footsteps of his father, Major Randy Medlock. Officer Medlock was an exemplary officer and an outstanding young man. He was awarded the Governor's Award for Impaired Driving Enforcement in 2022, but was tragically killed before he could receive that award. He was also a volunteer firefighter for the Keavy Fire Department, and he will be named to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. in May. He is survived by his wife, Courtney, and his son, Brantley. And that is Senate Joint Resolution 102.
Thank you, Senator Storm, and I can tell that that resolution is certainly important to you. Thank you for bringing that. The next one is Senate Joint Resolution 103. Now, these resolutions are for discussion only. We will not be voting on these. These will be part of the bigger road naming bill that will come over from the House this year, and it'll carry the name of Representative Bam Carney. And so that should be to us toward the end of the session. So please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to Senate Joint Resolution 103, this would name a bridge over I-75 in honor of Officer Travis Hurley, and that would be at exit 41 in the city limits of London. Officer Hurley served with the London City Police Department for 21 years. Excuse me. He obtained the rank of lieutenant before he retired, and then went back to work as a school resource officer. He was a member of the rescue squad, and his name will also be added to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. on May 15th of 23. He's survived by his wife, Angela, and son, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Storm. Thank you. Any further business come before the committee today? We have a motion to adjourn and a second. We are adjourned.